If someone gave you 4 free hours every single day to do whatever you wanted, no obligations, no interruptions, complete freedom, what would you do with them? Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. You already have those hours. They're called your evenings. But somewhere along the way, you started treating them like a dumping ground for exhaustion instead of a garden for growth. I did the same thing for years until I asked myself a brutal question. If I kept spending my evenings the way I'm spending them now, who would I become in 5 years? The answer terrified me. So I changed 7 specific things. And the person I'm becoming now, I actually like them. Look, you end every workday with good intentions, but fall into the same pattern. Scroll, snack, zone out, feel guilty. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. And here's what I need you to understand. The problem isn't discipline. It's not that you're lazy or weak or broken. It's that you're using a broken system for a very specific challenge. Your evenings fail because you're treating them like they're the same as your mornings. They're not. Evening energy, evening decision making, and evening motivation operate completely differently. Most productivity advice ignores this, but I'm about to show you why willpower fails after work. It's neurological, not personal. And then I'm going to walk you through 7 precise environmental and psychological shifts that work with your evening brain instead of against it. And finally, you're going to stop the cycle of intention, followed by guilt. I'm not telling you to hustle harder in your off hours. I'm showing you how to design evenings that restore you and move you forward, without force, without shame. All right, so what are these 7 things? Let me walk you through them the way I discovered them, not as a list, but as a story. Because this wasn't theory, this was survival. Picture this. It's 6:15 on a Tuesday evening. I walk through my front door after 9 hours at work, and I can feel it immediately. This weight, this gravitational pull. My body wants the couch, my mind wants nothing. And there's this voice that says, "You know what? You worked hard today. You deserve to rest. Just sit down for 20 minutes." So I do. I sit down. I pull out my phone. I start scrolling. 20 minutes becomes an hour. An hour becomes two. I'm not even enjoying what I'm looking at. I'm just moving my thumb. Up and down, up and down. At some point, I realize I'm hungry. So I wander to the kitchen and eat something I don't really want while still staring at my phone. Then I go back to the couch. Maybe I turn on the TV. Maybe I watch something I've already seen. Maybe I watch something I don't even like, but I'm too numb to change it. And then it's 10 o'clock. And I look back at the last 4 hours like they were stolen. Like someone reached into my life and took them while I wasn't paying attention. And I feel this crushing shame. This voice that says, "You did it again. You wasted another evening. You said you were going to work out. You said you were going to work on your project. You said tonight would be different." And I go to bed feeling like a failure before I've even closed my eyes. Does that sound familiar? Because I lived that pattern for years. Years. And I kept thinking the problem was me. I kept thinking I just needed more discipline, more motivation, more willpower. But here's what I finally figured out. Willpower is a finite resource. By the time you get home from work, you've already spent most of it. You've made hundreds of decisions. You've solved dozens of problems. You've navigated conflicts and deadlines and emails and interruptions. Your brain is exhausted. And when your brain is exhausted, it defaults to the path of least resistance, which is why you collapse, which is why you scroll, which is why you can't seem to do the things you said you'd do. So the first thing I changed, and this was the breakthrough that made everything else possible, is I stopped trying to relax immediately. Now I know that sounds counterintuitive. You come home, you're tired, of course you want to relax. But here's the thing. Relaxation isn't what you need right after work. Transition is. Think about it like this. If you're driving down the highway in fifth gear at 70 miles per hour and you suddenly try to throw the car into neutral without downshifting, what happens? You destroy the engine. That's what we do to our nervous systems every single day. We go from work mode, high stress, high output, high alert, to nothing. No bridge, no transition. And our system crashes. So instead, I created what I call a decompression ritual. 15 minutes. That's it. As soon as I walk through the door, before I do anything else, I change my clothes, not into pajamas, into something comfortable but intentional. Then I step outside. I don't have a destination, I just walk around the block. Sometimes I notice the sky. Sometimes I notice my breathing. Sometimes I don't notice anything at all. And then I come back inside and I make tea. Not while looking at my phone, not while thinking about work. Just making tea, pouring the water, watching it steep, holding the cup. These 15 minutes give my nervous system permission to shift modes instead of crashing. And the difference is profound. I'm not fighting myself anymore. I'm not forcing relaxation. I'm allowing transition. The second thing I did, and this one was huge, is I killed what I call the decision void. Here's what was happening. I'd get home, I'd finish my little decompression ritual, and then I'd stand in my living room and think, okay, what should I do now? And that question, that innocent little question, was murdering my evenings. Because by 6:30, I'd already made hundreds of decisions that day. My decision-making energy was gone. So when I asked myself what to do, my brain defaulted to the easiest option, which was always the phone, always the couch, always the scroll. So here's what I did instead. I created an evening menu, just like a restaurant menu, but for my life. I sat down on a Sunday and wrote out 3 to 4 activities that I genuinely wanted to do with my evenings. Not things I thought I should do, things I actually wanted. For me, it was working out, working on my creative project, reading or learning something new through a course or podcast. That's it. 4 options. And then every evening, I didn't ask, what should I do? I asked, which one from the menu am I choosing tonight? See the difference? I'm not making a decision from scratch when I'm depleted. I'm choosing from pre-decided options. It's the same reason Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every day. It's the same reason Obama only wore blue or gray suits. They understood that every decision costs energy. So they eliminated unnecessary decisions to preserve energy for the ones that mattered. And when I applied this to my evenings, the paralysis disappeared. I wasn't overwhelmed anymore. I was just choosing. Now, the third thing I did is going to sound extreme, but I promise you it changed everything. I made my phone inconvenient. And I don't mean a little inconvenient. I mean structurally, architecturally inconvenient. Here's the brutal truth I had to face. Willpower does not work against phone addiction. It just doesn't. These devices are designed by the smartest behavioral psychologists in the world. They are engineered to be irresistible. Every color, every notification, every infinite scroll, it's all designed to hijack your attention. So trying to resist that with willpower alone is like trying to stop a river with your bare hands. You need a dam. You need architecture. So I tried a bunch of things that didn't work. I deleted apps. I just reinstalled them. I set screen time limits. I ignored them. I put my phone in another room. I went and got it. Nothing worked until I did this. I bought a $15 lockbox with a timer, the kind you'd use to lock up snacks if you're trying to stop eating at night. And every evening at 6:30, my phone goes in that box. I set the timer for 2.5 hours, and it doesn't open until 9. The first week was genuinely uncomfortable, almost physical. I'd reach for my phone and it wouldn't be there, and I'd feel this spike of anxiety, like something was wrong, like I was missing something important. But you know what I wasn't missing? Anything. Nothing important happens on your phone between 6:30 and 9 p.m. that can't wait. Nothing. And by the second week, something incredible happened. I remembered what boredom feels like. And I remembered that boredom isn't the enemy. Boredom is actually the birthplace of creativity. When you're bored, your brain starts looking for something to do. And if scrolling isn't an option, it finds something real, something meaningful. I started having ideas again. I started noticing things again. I started being present again. And here's the paradox: restricting access to my phone gave me more freedom than I'd had in years. But here's where it gets interesting. Because these first three things, the decompression ritual, the decision menu, the phone lockbox, they created space. They cleared the deck. But space alone isn't enough. You need to fill it with something that actually matters to you, or you'll just find new ways to waste it. Which brings me to the fourth thing I did. I protected my energy input. And what I mean by that is this: your evening state isn't just about what you do, it's about what you consume. So I started paying attention. I tracked my media diet for 1 week. I wrote down every news article I read, every social media app I opened, every TV show I watched, every podcast I listened to. And then I asked myself a simple question: how did this make me feel? And the answer was devastating. 80% of what I was consuming left me feeling worse, anxious, inadequate, angry, numb. 80%. I was mainlining cortisol and calling it staying informed. So I implemented what I call a content curfew. No news after 6 p.m. None. I don't care what's happening in the world. It can wait until tomorrow morning. No social media after 7 p.m. And only content that's either genuinely educational or actually uplifting. Not fake uplifting, not toxic positivity, but things that genuinely made me feel more alive, more curious, more human. And within a week, my baseline anxiety dropped noticeably. I was sleeping better, I was thinking more clearly. I had more energy in the evenings because I wasn't spending it all processing other people's disasters and comparisons and rage bait. The fifth thing I did was probably the most counterintuitive, but it might be the most important. I front-loaded joy. Here's the mistake I was making. I was treating evening activities like homework. I should work out. I should read. I should be productive. Everything was a should. And you know what happens when everything's a should? Nothing feels good. Even the good things feel like obligations. So I flipped it. I started asking myself every evening, what would make this evening feel like it was worth living? Not what's productive, not what's responsible. What would bring me joy? And I did that thing first, not last. First, some nights it was cooking an elaborate meal while listening to music I loved. Not rushing, not multitasking, just cooking and enjoying it. Some nights it was calling a friend I hadn't talked to in months and having a real conversation. Some nights it was working on a creative project that had zero practical purpose, just pure play. And here's what happened. When I did something genuinely enjoyable first, it changed my energy state. My whole body relaxed, my mind opened up. And then the productive stuff, the workout, the reading, the learning, it felt easier. It felt natural. Because I wasn't coming from depletion anymore. I was coming from fullness. It's the same reason flight attendants tell you to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. You can't give from an empty tank, and you can't be productive from a joyless place. Well, you can, but it doesn't last, and it doesn't feel good. So prioritizing joy made me more productive, not less. That's the paradox nobody tells you. Now, the sixth thing I did addresses something that was creating a lot of hidden damage: the guilt around rest. Here's what was happening. I'd be tired, genuinely tired, and I'd think, I should just rest tonight. But then I'd feel guilty about resting. So I'd do this thing where I'd half rest. I'd scroll while feeling bad about it. I'd watch TV while telling myself I was lazy. I wasn't actually resting and I wasn't actually doing anything productive. I was just marinating in guilt. So I gave myself permission to create a no-guilt rest option. One evening per week, I chose Thursday, because by Thursday I'm usually running on fumes. I designate it as intentional nothing night. No goals, no improvement, no productivity, just pure rest. But here are the rules. It has to be actually restful, not just numbing. So scrolling doesn't count, hate watching doesn't count, stress eating doesn't count. But taking a long bath counts. Lying on the floor listening to music with my eyes closed counts. Taking a nap at 7 p.m. absolutely counts. And you know what happened? When rest was intentional and guilt-free, it was actually restorative. I'd wake up Friday morning feeling recharged. And because I knew I had that one night where I could truly rest without guilt, I didn't crave it every other night. I didn't spend every evening fighting the urge to collapse, because I had one evening where collapsing was not only allowed, it was the plan. And this brings me to the seventh and final thing, which ties everything together. I built what I call a future self check-in. Every Sunday evening, I started asking myself one question. What does tomorrow evening me need to succeed? Not morning me, evening me. Because for years I'd been treating my evening self like an opponent, like someone I had to defeat or discipline or overcome. But that's not helpful. That's just self-violence. So instead, I started treating my evening self like someone I care about, someone I'm setting up for success. And practically, that meant doing things on Sunday that would help Monday evening me. Meal prepping, so I'm not deciding what to eat at 6:30 when I'm depleted and hungry. Laying out my workout clothes so there's no friction, no excuse. Setting up my creative workspace so it's clean and inviting, not cluttered and overwhelming. Choosing which evening menu item I'm doing on which day, so I'm not deciding in the moment. And what I realized is that my evening self isn't lazy. They're not unmotivated. They're just exhausted and under-resourced. And when I started resourcing them properly, they showed up differently. Suddenly, I wasn't at war with myself anymore. I was working with myself. And these seven things together created a completely different evening ecosystem. Not perfect, not every night. Some nights I still collapse. Some nights I still scroll. But it's the exception now, not the rule. And that shift, from the exception being productive evenings to the exception being wasted evenings, that shift changed everything. So let me distill the core truths here, because I want you to really understand why these seven things work. First, transitions matter more than you think. You cannot go from work mode to life mode without a bridge. The decompression ritual isn't wasted time. It's the most important 15 minutes of your evening. It's the hinge everything else swings on. Second, your evening self has different cognitive resources than your morning self. Decision fatigue is real. Pre-deciding removes the burden of choice when you're least equipped to make good ones. Third, you're not weak for being drawn to your phone. It's designed to be irresistible. So, change the environment, not your character. Fourth, what you consume shapes your internal state. Protect your evening energy by being ruthless about your media diet. Fifth, when you front load what brings you alive, productivity becomes easier. It's not about discipline, it's about sequence. Sixth, guilt-free rest is restorative. Guilty rest is just another form of stress. Permission matters. And seventh, your evening self is not your enemy. They're just under-resourced. Set them up for success and watch them thrive. And here's the paradox that runs through all of this. The less you force your evenings to be productive, the more productive they naturally become. Constraint creates creativity. Rest enables growth. When you stop treating your evenings like a battlefield and start treating them like a garden, everything changes. So how do you actually implement this? Let me break it down into something you can start tonight. Week 1, pick one thing from the 7. Just one. I recommend the decompression ritual because it's the easiest entry point. Set a phone alarm for 6:15 labeled decompression time. 15 minutes. Change clothes, step outside, make a drink. No phone, no TV, just transition. And track how your evening feels different. Not better necessarily, just different. Notice what shifts. Week 2, add structure. Create your evening menu. Write down 3 to 4 activities you genuinely want to do. Not should do, want to do. And then on Sunday evening, choose which one you'll do Monday through Wednesday. The goal isn't to do all of them. The goal is to remove the "what should I do" paralysis. Week 3, if you're ready, address the phone, implement some form of barrier, timer lockbox, leaving it in your car, giving it to a family member. Start with just 2 hours, 6:30 to 8:30, and have something specific planned for that time. So you're not just white knuckling it. Notice the discomfort, but also notice what emerges in the space. What thoughts come up? What ideas appear? What do you suddenly have energy for? Week 4, add one more element from the 7 based on what you need most. Maybe it's protecting your energy input. Maybe it's front-loading joy. Maybe it's creating that no-guilt rest night. Maybe it's the future self check-in. Evaluate what's working, what feels forced, and adjust accordingly. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress. And then ongoing. The Sunday evening future self check-in becomes your weekly reset. Keep what works, drop what doesn't. Stay curious about what your evenings need to feel alive. So here's what we covered. Transition before you relax. Pre-decide to beat decision fatigue. Make your phone inconvenient. Protect your energy input. Front-load joy. Create guilt-free rest. And set up your future self for success. 7 things, not 700. And the result? Evenings that feel like they're yours again, not stolen by exhaustion, not lost to scrolling, but genuinely lived. Your evenings are not the problem. The system you've been using is. You're not lazy. You're not lacking discipline. You're just exhausted and trying to operate with a framework that doesn't match your actual energy. The moment you work with your evening brain instead of against it, everything shifts. Those 4 hours between work and sleep, they're not leftover time. They're life itself. You know what's wild? A year from now, if you reclaim just 2 of those 4 evening hours every day, that's 700 hours. 700 hours to become someone you're proud of, to build something meaningful, to rest in a way that actually restores you. That's not some distant future. That starts tonight. That starts with one small change. If this resonated, if you've been stuck in the evening zombie loop and you're ready to break out, drop a comment and tell me which of the 7 you're starting with tonight. And if you want more practical, no BS strategies for actually living the life you keep saying you want to live, subscribe. Not because I need it, but because you deserve reminders that your time matters. I'll see you in the next one. Now go reclaim your evening.